Hello, how y'all doing? Everyone doing all right? So, in the true spirit of improvisation, since the computer I was expecting to use is not working, we're going to improvise this masterclass. I'm going to show you today a little bit about sampling in the traditional way. I have here what's called the SP404. It's a digital audio sampler, but it's a machine. It doesn't need a computer. You can literally just plug things into it and sample, and there's nothing really to look at. So you really have to use your intuition and your ears to make music with it. And then maybe we'll talk about kind of the production process with completing a track. I'll show you a track of mine, and we'll talk about how to get there. And then, we can, since I know a lot of you are already music producers and things, I think I'll use the third section to just kind of talk about whatever you're interested in, because I think the basics of how to use a production program you can find online. So I want to make sure that I touch on topics that you guys are interested in. So the first thing I'll do is I'll demonstrate this sampler. And if you don't know what a sampler is or what sampling is, it's basically when you take pieces of audio and reuse it and make something new out of it. So samplers are just machines that capture samples, right? So this sampler, it's not very old, maybe it's like 15 years old, and I bought it and I didn't know what it did. And then I started to realize if I just would take little bits of things and try to play it together, it would make music. So I have a drum loop in there, and then I'm going to play the Stevie Wonder sample I have, and you can just get an idea of what it sounds like. That's just an example of kind of like how you can be creative with other parts of audio. But if that seems weird, let me show you the process, all right? So I'm gonna take this over here. Basically, I can use anything to sample from. So right now, I have my phone plugged in, and you know what? I think I'm gonna start with what I got today. So I was in the market in Tel Aviv today. And I can sample that too. Pretty nice, right? Me in the market today. Hey. תודה. תודה. Thank you, thank you. What's the name of that guitar player? Yeah, really famous guitar player in there. I don't know if I recorded him well, but. How much did he still going? Oh, really? Now, obviously, that's just recordings off my phone, so it's not like the highest audio quality, but it's more of just thinking about the process. Okay, so what did I actually do? So there is a process to what I'm doing. Basically, I have to record into this sampler the sections of audio I want, and I'm not doing it with the metronome or anything like that. I'm using my ear. Okay, so I have to hear a loop, and I have to count in my head, right? Because there's no metronome, there's nothing to sync it to. Now, on this machine, I can change the tempo. It does like a guess of what the tempo is, and I can speed things up and slow them down, but it's not approximate. So I really have to use my ear. So when I'm actually sampling audio from songs, what I'm looking for are things that are already naturally looping, things that I know are gonna repeat, and then I can say, okay, I know this is gonna repeat, so let me grab this. So I have this one section that can loop, and if I have this loop, then I can add this loop to it and just kind of piece everything together. So in the couple days I've been here, I've really gotten into this guy Zohar Argov. That's how you say his name. So we're gonna sample him. Let's see.
בסמטה צרה היא הלכה לבדה, בעיניה חיוך שלו רק אכזבה, על כל דלת דווקא בחוצפה מגזימה, ואני כמבוהל רק שאלתי לשמה, והיא חייכה וליטפה את פניי והוסיף הפרח שנפל, הלב שלי נשבר, אוי למה ומדוע לא תשוב יותר אליי, הפרח שנפל, הלב
I'll put some delay on that, you know. So the point is like, yeah, you can do this now on computers and you can get really accurate with these things, but I think there's something, at least when talking about hip hop, because I believe that this class is supposed to be an introduction to hip hop production. This is how it started. It started with DJs actually, and they would have two records. I don't know if you've all seen like an old school turntable with vinyl records, but you have one record on one side, another record, you have a little mixer in the middle, you can fade up the records, right? So what they did is they would find parts of a record that they really like, and usually it was a section that just had drums and percussion. They called this section the break, right? So when they would hear this section, they said, wow, this is great. Like everybody really loves this when the dancers start really getting into it. So what if I just take the same record, put it on both turntables, and when this break comes up, I just play it on the next record too, and just back and forth, back and forth. A guy named DJ Kool Herc innovated this style and is thus credited with inventing hip hop. And the technique was called the merry-go-round. And basically what they would do, because you know vinyl, you can't just say it's right here. They would take a crayon or like tape and just mark where the break was on the record. So they would say, okay, I'm gonna play it here, and then I'm gonna rewind this record back to the break point Once it finishes here, I'm gonna fade it down real quick, let this one play, so it goes. So that's originally how people would loop records. You couldn't just say loop it and it would go. You had to kind of like do this really sloppy method of starting a record, rewinding one record, letting that play, rewinding that one, and it was, it took a lot of skill. But what would happen, you'd have this drum loop going over and over, drums and percussion, and the dancers really loved that. And I don't know if you ever seen breakdancing, but the term breakdancing comes because the dancers were dancing to these breaks, and these breaks were also known as break beats. So a lot of these terminology comes from this technique of looping these little parts of just drums and bass and percussion, right? So because of that, if you don't know, during this time, this is like the 70s I'm talking about, disco was like the king of all music in America. Disco was on the radio, disco was in the clubs, it was disco fever. And, people were starting to get tired of disco. Disco, you'd have these 30-piece bands, orchestras, a lot of production. It was, it's a big deal. And so the reaction to that was kind of making this underground music that was just drums, just drums. And what would happen at the parties is that the people who were kind of handing the DJ his records, they would start talking on the mic, giving people shout-outs like, oh, okay, hey, we got, my cousin in the audience, hey, what's up, blah, blah, blah. And eventually what they would do is they would start emulating the radio DJs at the time. So the radio DJs at the time would come up with like a little rhyme to, introduce the songs. Like, okay, this is Slick Cool Freddy, and we're about to play the music to groove your soul all night long, and we're in control, and it's the max and relaxing, this kind of like just little silly rhymes. And so the first MCs would do that, but they wouldn't do it in time. They would just say whatever. And then eventually they started kind of developing a flow, and the flow is the rhythmic part. And then that's how rapping started, because they were just shouting out people at the parties, coming up with the little rhymes. And at first it would be, like a sentence, then it'd be a paragraph, and then you get like verses. And then suddenly the MC develops. So all at the same time, you have the DJs developing this technique, the dancers breakdancing with it, and the MCs starting to rap. And what's going on at the same time as this is people are writing graffiti all over New York, all on the trains and things like that. And those are the 4 elements of hip-hop. Graph writing, which is graffiti, breakdancing, DJing, and MC. Now, the DJ's role evolved into the producer. Once the 70s ended, you have a record called Rapper's Delight, which is the first hip-hop record. Does anyone know that song? Has anyone ever heard that song? Well, if you haven't heard it, I might as well play it because it's important. So the thing about Rapper's Delight is very funny, because Rapper's Delight is the first hip-hop record, but it actually features a band. And the funny thing about that is that the band is playing a snippet of somebody else's song, but they're not sampling because they're just replaying it. It's called interpolation. Basically, when you want to do a sample, but you don't want to pay for it, you just get musicians to play it. So that's what they did. The first hip-hop song on record is actually not a sample, but it's a band, right? So this is the song. And the story goes, they played this loop for 16 minutes in one take, and that's what you hear. Yes. So the thing about it is that what they're playing actually comes from a song called Good Times by a really popular disco band named Chic. And if you know Nile Rodgers, he's an amazing producer. He actually was really pissed when this song came out. He's like, this is my song, And then they settled, and he realized this was like one of the most important things that ever happened, so he was cool with it. So this is an interesting piece of history because they literally just copied somebody else's song. The raps also are copied from other MCs that were popular at the time, because back in this time, nobody thought hip-hop was real music. They didn't think you could make a record from it. They were just doing this at parties. So a lot of the MCs, what they're rapping are other people's rhymes that they heard at parties. And, these MCs at the time, they're like, why would I make a hip-hop record? I'm not doing this. So they turned down the producer who made this record because she went and tried to get the MCs to rap, and they're like, no, I'm not going to record. This is just for parties. Because the way hip-hop started, it was just for parties. So MCs would rap for like 15, 20 minutes straight, so they didn't think that I could put this on a record, right? So this first hip-hop song is a very interesting bit of history because nothing about it is original, but it's the first recorded example that anybody heard of hip hop, right? Now, what eventually happened is that there were companies that were making samplers for a long time, and they weren't very popular yet. But you had all these what were called rhythm machines. So you had different machines that would play like pre-programmed drum loops, and there are a lot of them, and you can go online because there are a lot of them. I don't want to get into all of them, but there are a lot of them. And what happened is that around the end of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, drum machines and audio samplers became affordable. Before they were just super, super expensive, so most people, who were just like party DJs couldn't afford them. But companies like Roland and Korg started making these affordable samplers. The first one that really was kind of revolutionary was called the Lin drum machine, the LM1, which was also extremely expensive, so most people didn't use it. But it actually had audio samples of drums in it because the drum machines were like trying to electronically create drum sounds with frequencies and things like that, or they were just literally taking these like kind of raw samples and replaying them and they sounded terrible. But once you get to the 80s, you actually have these machines that can sample audio, so you can put actual sounds from records onto a machine and play them yourself. Before you had to manipulate sequences and things like that, and you couldn't be very, very creative. So around the early 80s, DJs started getting equipment where they can actually produce music. And this actually started hip hop production because now you could take these records and you can find a creative way to play them. Because before you just had the record and you would spin it, you could scratch on it, but that was it. And no one really thought you could make recorded music like that. So this isn't anywhere close to an original like audio sampler, but it works in the same style. Basically, they would take vinyl records and they would record it to their machines, and usually they only had like a very short amount of time, like 10 seconds, that they could sample. So it was about capturing little clips of things and combining it together. So with early drum machines, yeah, you could program some rhythms, and then you take a sample and you put it on top. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of emulating what that early style became, because it wasn't really until the 90s that you start to get computer software that could do this. So and the reason I like to show this is because I think now with technology, music is losing a little bit of its soul, and this is purely based on instinct. Like I am counting, but I'm not looking at a metronome and looking at a BPM and saying, okay, it's this, is this. It's very hands-on, and I think it makes the music a little, it makes it fun, and I think just if you're interested in hip hop production, I think sampling is really one of the most unique things about hip hop production because it's the only music form that I know of that really makes an art out of taking other people's music. And of course, there's a lot of controversy around that because, at least in the United States, you can't necessarily take people's music and reuse it without paying them. And then some artists don't want you to do that. So there's long history of legal cases around sampling people's music. However, some people argue that, well, if I sample it and make it so different that you can't recognize it, then it's my music. So there's a lot of legal things around it, but I'm a proponent of sampling because I think it's just a different way to create music. And if you are a student of jazz or really any music, you'll realize that artists have been sampling like the entire history of music. Everyone steals from everybody else. Beethoven and Mozart is stealing from Haydn. Like everybody was just copying everybody else. But at the time, you didn't have the type of laws to protect that, and you didn't have recorded music. So, you would only know if you're a music aficionado. So I think the idea of taking other people's work and recreating it is something that as old as music itself. But hip hop, uses this very different technique because it's not about writing notes. It's not about, okay, I'm just going to use this chord progression. It's literally about taking audio, and it can be any audio. You can make something out of anything. I think on here somewhere, I don't know where, not here. Yeah, I have like just birds recorded. And you just do random stuff with it, like you can reverse it, put all types of effects on it, and get crazy. But the idea is that just treating sound as your instrument, I think, is something that's a very revolutionary concept. Is that it's not about notes and harmony, but it's literally about what you can do with sound. And I think that's a really, really important concept. So that's really what I like to do. Now, moving into modern production, of course, there are all these programs, and I don't know whose computer this is, so I can't actually open it. But this is what I will do while that's happening. I'll play you a track of mine that I produced with my band, because I know a lot of you are instrumentalists, and I think maybe there's like kind of a new world with instrumentalists and getting into production and these things. So I'll play you this track I did with my band, and actually, since you have the computer up, I'll just play it off of YouTube if that's okay. YouTube. If you're looking for weird stuff, everyone's gonna know now. So I have a band. It's called The Love Experiment. Yeah, thank you. Shout out to the one person who knows. It's always one. There's always one. Hopefully it's not blocked in this country. I don't know. Sometimes things are blocked. Maybe it won't come up. Hold on. Oh yeah. Maybe if I do that. Because I don't want a video, I just want the audio. Let's see. Let's see what happens. I guess I just have to play it off my phone. But I know they have it on here. Sorry guys. I had all this stuff prepared. Guess I'm gonna have to do it from SoundCloud. That's okay. Alright. Let's see. And if it doesn't work here, then I don't know. I'll just keep ad-libbing. We'll see. All right. Okay. So here's a track that I produced with my band, and I'll let you listen to it, and then I'll talk about the process. And unfortunately, well, maybe I can play the original. Maybe my email will work, and I can play you the original so you can see where it started and understand. And I can talk a little bit about like the process, because I think that's one thing that producers, a lot of us, kind of, oh Lord, it's just me. I don't know what I'm doing it. Oh man. Let me just try to play the track. Is the sound guy here? Can you turn the volume up? I think it's playing.
I think it's not going through. It's trying to go through the HDMI.
Thank you. You're figuring out all the problems. This is why you should make music with regular instruments, because technology likes to mess up. It loves that. Technology loves to say, oh, you gonna do this? Nope. You know. And this is why I like using these things. There we go. All right, here we go. Can you turn up a little bit? Just a little, you know.
When I was a little girl, all I wanted to be was invisible. But hide and seek is never fun if you're not found. My daddy said, now baby, don't be shy. You've got a lot to say, do not apologize. But I stumble and I fumble and I lose my words, especially around you. Baby, you got me feeling like a schoolgirl. You get me going. Baby, you got me living in your world. You got me loving. Baby, you got me feeling like a schoolgirl. You got me going. Baby, you got me living in your world. You got me loving. I was scared, but you were so patient. You held my hand as I stepped in, and that was it. 'Cause love don't wait around, it comes and goes. Now sweet is the music that I hear. Now that I am not afraid to hold you near to my cautious heart. And I'm so glad I did, because maybe you got me feeling like a schoolgirl. You got me going. Baby, you got me living in your world. You got me loving. Baby, you got me feeling like a schoolgirl. You got me going. Baby, you got me living in your world. You got me loving. me feeling brand new. With each kiss, you got me feeling you. You got me feeling like I'm in a daze. You got me feeling you. You get me feeling crazy in the best way. I'm feeling you. You get me feeling you. You get me feeling you. You get me feeling brand new. With each kiss, you got me feeling you. You got me feeling like I'm in a daze. You got me feeling you. You got me feeling crazy in the best way. I'm feeling you. You got me feeling you. You got me feeling you.
Boy, you got me living in a new world, crazy in the best way. Got me on a wave and a float, swimming in your love like an ocean. Every kiss be a slow motion. You ain't even notice. Gotta go wishing and hoping that this is just more than a moment. Smoking your love and it's potent. You got me so open, I just can't control it. Like what?
So believe it or not, that song was written in 2010, I think, 2010 or 2011, before a lot of you were born. But no. So let's see. I think I have like if this will play, I have like a rough, super rough early version of that track, just so you can kind of hear that before and after effect. We'll see if it plays because it's deep in my email. I think it'll play. Yeah. Let's see. Maybe it's not playing. No. So you can see it was a lot different.
When I was a little girl, all I wanted to be was invisible. But hide and seek is never fun. You're not fun.
Not bad though. Like I used to think it was horrible, but it's just a different vibe. I was going more for a D'Angelo vibe originally.
Especially around you. Baby, you get me feeling like a schoolgirl. You get me going. Baby, you get me.
Yeah, this is the early version of it. Yeah, it's the same record. It's just I'm showing you the early version. I played the final version. This is the early version. So, like I said, I was kind of going for a D'Angelo voodoo vibe, and it just wasn't working. Like, I liked it, but it wasn't working. So what I had to do, I'm a drummer. I had to cut my drums out. So on this recording, what you hear is a drum sample that we looped and did a bunch of stuff to. And on this recording that you're hearing right now is my original drum part. Which, looking back at it, I liked it, But my engineer was like, this sucks. And that's sometimes what happens when you're producing things. You listen to things 10,000 times and you just say, I hate this now, Same trumpet solo, all that type of stuff. Trying to think if we made any other significant changes. Let's see. Yeah, you had, more of my actual drums doing things, more organ. We cut a lot of that out because we realized we just had too many things going on. We had to cut them out. Yeah, I like my drums here. I think we cut these out too. See, that's what happens. Sometimes you go back and you're like, oh, why didn't we do this? Or make an alternate version, I don't know. But, yeah, the breakdown doesn't exist on this version. I think we also cut this bass line out, which is nice. Yeah, it had potential. And then so the song actually just ends. See, on this recording, the song ends right there, and we go into that beat. We're just sampling this part. That's how we did that.
Baby, you got me feeling like a schoolgirl. You got me going. Baby, you got me living in a new world.
Right, so that was, oh no. If they clap for your demos, you've truly made it. I mean, you want to hear some unreleased demos? Yes, that means you made it. No, but just to talk a little bit about process, the song was written in like 2010, 2011. The scratch, like the studio recording, was done in 2013. The album came out in 2016, so it was a long process. This is my band from college, and we still make music. We have this record that you just heard a song from. It's self-titled. It's called The Love Experiment. And we also have a record called Binary with a Japanese group. And I'm about to begin production on our official second record, which will be called I Don't Know, because I haven't started writing the music. But to talk about the band, at that time, I wrote most of the music, or me and the vocalist who you hear on there, Kim Mayo, we would write a lot of the music together. And it originally started with 12 people. And then we whittled that down to 6 people because we realized 12 people was just crazy. And yeah, a lot of it was just, we spent years playing these songs over and over, trying different things, trying new versions. And by the time we went in the studio, we'd already been playing the song for like 2 or 3 years. So we had an idea of what we wanted to be. But in the process of post-production, we were in 2015, 2016, things were changing sonically. Trap music was becoming big, and our mindset was just in a different place, so that this D'Angelo kind of vibe wasn't working for us anymore, And we also had other songs that were kind of in that vibe. So I think, sometimes it's just when you're in the process of making these songs, you can want one idea, but you have to also be open to letting the music go where it's supposed to go, right? So I'll briefly talk about one other song that I did that was also kind of the same idea. It morphed 10,000 times until you get to the version that you hear now. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I feel like a lot of times, for all of us who are making tracks, we don't know when a song is finished. We'll start something and we'll say, this is great, or we'll say, this sucks, and then never finish it. And I think, it's always a process that you need sometimes support on. So I had a great engineer who was helping me mix the music and helping me produce it. And sometimes, if you find yourself stuck on a track, producing a track, you need to break away from it, or you need somebody who can offer you a completely fresh perspective. Because I wasn't going to put that trap beat at the end of it. That wasn't even in my mind. But one day I came into the studio, and the producer who was helping me with it, his name is Gabo Lugo. He's a really amazing guy. And I don't know if you know Gabo. Yeah, percussion player too. He's a man of few words, very few words. In fact, the first couple years I knew him, I didn't think he spoke English. He's from Puerto Rico. So I just assumed he didn't speak English because he never spoke to me. And so even at the process of this record, I think by that point, I'd known him for 4 years. I'd probably gotten about, maybe like 5 paragraphs worth of words from him. And the entire time I knew him. So I walked in the studio one day, speaking of this song, and I walk in, I'm like, man, we got to get this song done. We've been working on it. And he's just smiling at me. He presses play, and he just plays this beat for me, and I lose my mind. Because for me, it just completely revolutionized the song, and it made me like it again. And now my process is I'm never going to work on music that long. As I told you, the song was written in 2010. It came out in 2016. I will never work on another song that long ever, because I believe sometimes we can be our worst enemies when it comes to completing music. You can just do it and try to get perfect, and you're never going to get to a place of perfection. I think you have to get to a place where you can die okay with it, knowing that, it's okay, that if somebody remembers you and they pull the song up, that, it's okay. So I don't know if I can even find this other track. But before I move on, I guess I want to open the floor to some questions, because I guess it is a good idea for me to show you some of the music I produce and talk a little bit about it. But before I move on, does anybody have any questions specifically related to the sampling stuff or the production process of creating a song? Because I'm a producer that, yeah, I make beats, but I also work with bands and artists to create songs, you know. I think if you make beats, you're a beat maker, but I think if you care about making a song, then you're a producer, because you have to produce something. A beat is, in my opinion, is sometimes an unfinished idea. You know, you can make instrumental music, and that's great. I have an instrumental album out, but if you really want to be a producer, it's about working with the artist, even if you're the artist, to complete a song, you know, and whatever that form takes, you're concerned about the final product, not just about, oh, I made these drums and keyboards and it's awesome. You're concerned about how the artist performs, how they sing, you know, like all those vocals were done on like a really cheap microphone that's like a USB microphone that just plugged into my laptop and recorded at my job in like a practice room, because I was like, yeah, I'm tired of like going in the studio and like not having the right vibe. We're just gonna like get together and hang out, and I'm gonna just record these vocals like that. And you know, it sounds great to me. You know, I think sometimes you can get in your head about, okay, I need to write this, I need to write that, but a lot of your favorite records, engineers were just kind of figuring things out and just trying things and experimenting on other people's money. You know, just like, okay, I'm gonna set this up like this and see what happens. So I think you have to, within this process of production, you have to be free, but also understand that you want the artist to give them the best version of themselves on the recording, because the recording is like this timestamp in history. So in my opinion, being a producer and working with rappers, singers, bands, all that, is trying to understand the psychology of these artists and what they really stand for, and getting them to give you that performance. And doing whatever you're doing, whether it's creating the music or just mixing it or recording them or whatever you do has to enhance what they're trying to convey. And artists can be their worst enemies sometimes. Artists can get in their way all the time. Oh, I need to do that take again. It was horrible. And you have to get them to a space of saying, no, that was actually great. Look, you know, take a walk around the block and come back and listen to it. And you just kind of adjust everything and say, look, it sounds great. And then, you know, everybody else in the room was like, yeah, it sounds great. Okay, I guess it's great. You know, and that's the work that we do. You know, one of my favorite producers, Rick Rubin, that's pretty much what he does. He just is like a philosopher. He just tells people exactly what they need to hear, and he has some of the best records to his credit because of that, you know. And I think Dr. Dre also is another one who just knows how to get the best performances out of people, and also, you know, make the music sonically what it needs to be. And from what I've started to understand, there are a lot of techniques that you can learn, but the biggest technique is your ear, is developing your ear. And only you can tune your ear to what it is that you like. You know, nobody can tell you that this is how your ear is supposed to hear music. Only you can do that, right? So you have to spend the time investigating what you like and who created the things you like. What did they do, you know? Because from an engineering standpoint, Dr. Dre does a lot of like things that are wrong. He does a lot of things that are wrong, but it works for him and it gets the sound that he wants to get, you know. And, you know, Rick Rubin might not ever like touch a mixing board, might not ever like program a beat, but he gets the best out of his artists, you know. So I think production is more of a philosophy than it even is the technique of like how do you sample or how do you sequence something on the computer, you know. And I think if you want to be a music producer, then it's understanding that is equally as important as understanding how to sequence and program a beat. Now, before I move on, because I do want to find this other track and play it for you, because when else can I just play music of mine for our audience? I would like, if anybody has some questions specifically about music production or working with artists or sampling, to please ask them, because since I don't have what I prepared, I have to kind of be free with this presentation. So does anybody have any questions about what they heard or what I'm doing? And yeah. What do you mean by a limit? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So sometimes this is what I think as a beginning producer, and I'm still gonna put myself in the category of beginner, even though I guess it's been like a decade. No, it's been longer than a decade, but whatever. I still put myself in the category of beginner because I'm always trying to learn. So recently, there's this rapper named J. Cole. You know J. Cole? He like a few months ago, he was like, yeah, I'm just looking for beats, and people send me beats, and I didn't send him any beats, but I thought, hey, maybe like, let me try to make something in the style of his last record, and I listened to a couple tracks, and I do this all the time when I'm trying to learn how to produce something specifically for an artist that I like. I will listen over and over and over to their tracks and just try to like do something in the style of them. However, I will never be able to actually emulate them. And I think that's the cool part. Even as you try to use references, you're never actually gonna like make the reference close to them. You're not gonna do an exact copy unless you literally try to make an exact copy, but you shouldn't do that. I think references are great teaching tools. And let me see if I can play you this beat. Let's see. Maybe I can't. Oh, yes, I can. I know where it is. Yeah, I think references are good to use because how else are you going to learn if you want to learn a certain technique? How else are you going to learn? I'm a jazz musician by trade, and that's exactly how we learn. We have to transcribe solos. We have to learn literally what other people played. And by doing that, we start to develop our own vocabulary. And from there, you kind of just do what you want from that. You get the technique, you get the vocabulary, and then you do what you want. So I don't think there's a limit to doing references. I just think that that shouldn't be all you do. I think it's just a teaching tool, in my opinion. Let me see. If I can find you this beat, I'll find it and play it for you. But I'll take another question. Anyway, the point being is use references to learn, but don't make that your entire practice. But I think it's a good practice. I saw another question. Yes, I'm listening. So say it again. How do I keep the relationship with the band? Oh yeah, yeah. Well, is any show of hands? Is anybody in a band in here? Everybody's in a band. Yeah. Well, so okay, this is an important topic. So I'm answering this while I'm also looking for something. So don't. I'm paying attention. So I've had bands since I was 14. So it's been a long time. And I've learned over the years that being a band leader is like really being like a therapist. You have to just manage people's personalities, and it's really quite difficult actually because everybody has their different opinions about what they think the music should be about, and you're dealing with a lot of conflicting personalities. And sometimes if they're your friends, you don't want to come off like, yeah, guys, this is my band, and you do what I say, especially if you don't have a lot of money to pay them. You definitely don't want to do that. That's not, nobody, they won't be around for much longer. But I think it's really about managing dynamics. So if people understand, yeah, this is your band, and you put this together, and that's cool, then, it's a little bit easier to understand, like, okay, we follow you, but we also work together. One of my biggest issues when I was running my band is that I wanted it to work like a collective. So I didn't really want to be the leader. I just wanted to get us all together, and then all of us work together, and all of us bring ideas, and yeah. But that doesn't work, actually. You can't do that. Someone has to be running the show because otherwise no one's going to be motivated to do anything, right? Someone has to have direction, someone has to have a vision, and someone has to say, this is what we're doing. And everybody either falls in line with that vision or they don't, right? But a band, it's like a basketball team. Like without a coach, it's just a bunch of guys running around not knowing what they're doing. So as the band leader or the producer, you're the coach. You're the coach is and I think it's a good metaphor because the coach might have been a player themselves, so the producer could be one of the musicians or not. The coach might not necessarily be on the court, but the coach is the one who's trying to get the best performance out of them, right? And everybody understands the role of the coach. So as the producer or as the band leader, you have to make your role very clear and let everybody understand that they have a role. You know, I think basketball is great because it's just, 5 positions and everybody has their role. Sometimes these roles swap, but usually everybody has their role. In a good basketball team, everyone plays their role and complements each other. Not everybody can be the band leader. Not everybody can be the drummer. Not everybody can be the lead vocalist. Not everybody can be the main songwriter. Everybody has to know their place. And a good producer understands how to get the best out of each musician and keep them working together in harmony, which is more difficult than it sounds. But, I mean, maybe it also sounds difficult. But it's a really challenging concept. But that's your role. And it's the hardest role in the band. And especially if you're like me and you're the producer and you're a songwriter and you're the drummer, you just kind of like, and you're the booking agent and you're the manager, like, you just kind of get buried under all these roles, but you also get the biggest check. So, which is true. I got paid a lot of money from that record, so I'm very happy. But, that's not the point. The point is that you have to balance all these people well, and you have to make sure that everybody knows their role, right? If the bass player wants to be the lead vocalist, but they sound terrible, you got to know how to talk to them and still encourage them. Yeah, why don't you sing backgrounds on this song? Yeah, that'd be cool, but don't, you're managing egos, and everybody has an ego, and an ego isn't a bad thing, but you have to understand how to work with everybody's ego and, like, pump up their ego. Like, yeah, you sound great doing this. Like, we need more of that. Yeah, like, you just have to work to everybody's strength and get everybody's strength to complement each other for the song. It's difficult, That's why I study, like, Buddhism and a lot of philosophy, because it's really difficult to balance people. It's like, having a family or anything, or running a business. You're really just babysitting people. not to, to play it down, but, we're artists, so we're emotional. So in creating art is a very emotionally taxing process. So you have to use yourself and really humble yourself to be everybody's therapist and understand what they're going through, so that you can hopefully translate that into something positive, because a band can be like a really shaky ship without a captain. Hopefully that made sense. For 2 seconds, I'm going to play this beat to talk about your references. So J. Cole released a record called KOD, which is really cool, and it's kind of like has some jazzy kind of trap beats. So what I did is I sampled my record. I took some strings from the record I released, and I tried to make a little beat that might be in his style. So this is kind of like, oh wait, hold on. This is kind of like my type beat example. So it's kind of like, I've heard tracks of his that kind of have this vibe, like Deja Vu is a track that has this vibe, I took that sample and I pitched it down, put a filter on it or whatever. The little 808 with the bends and stuff. But the idea is I wouldn't have made a beat like this if I wasn't trying to make something that I think he would sound good on. So it's still a good process to use. But now I like this beat, so I'll release it for something, But no one will know that it was a J. Cole type beat or whatever, Anyway, that's the idea. Okay, next question. Yes. Yes. I think the most rewarding part of producing is producing for an artist. So it's still like, the question was, what did I find the most rewarding part of producing, since I'm also an instrumentalist and play music? I love playing with musicians because the conversations and interaction you can have, you can't really do that by yourself. I mean, you'll see if you come to a concert tonight, I do my best to perform solo and have fun, and it's cool. But, there's something about interacting with other musicians. you can get to like a certain level of like heightened awareness that I think is just unlike anything else. It's like playing sports. You know, when a team is really going well together, it's like almost like watching magic. But with production, you know, it's composition for me. So I like making songs, and I think I like creating worlds for artists to build in. You know, like with production, I get to create these atmospheres, and it's fun if I do it by myself and just make beats, and that's great. But it becomes exciting when I can give it to an artist and they like it, you know. Or if I take an artist's song and I produce it and I take what they had and expand upon their vision. I think that to me is really what's fun, you know. I'm very much into movies, and I like music to be very cinematic, even if it's not for film and things like that. So the fun part of production is that you get to create this musical movie. You get to like really be meticulous and say, okay, right here, this is gonna change and this is gonna change. When you're playing live music, you can only control yourself, you know. So like being the producer is like being the conductor in a certain sense. You get to really control every part and not necessarily rely on the intuition or the natural feel of musicians, but on your own mind. And then if you want to add musicians, you can. If you want to play on it, you can. But you get to be the movie director. You get to decide where the story is going. And for me, that gives me a lot of excitement because I can create these entire worlds. I can create an entire book, whether, you know, that's an album. I get to create these stories through music and really be the director of it. And the artist gets to tell their story in really cool ways. So that's really what it is for me. Just I like to build these sonic environments that I can't really do just from the drums. Drums only gives me one perspective. Piano gives me one perspective. But when I produce, I can put everything together. Yes. Yeah, the kind of session fatigue. This happens a lot, really, especially in the mixing process. It can be really deadly, you know. So, this is what I'll say. One thing I challenge new producers to do, especially if you're like a beat maker and you like sequence things, is I challenge you to get really fast at making ideas. Like with my students, I give them 10 minutes to make a beat. There's a great video series online called Against the Clock where they get different producers to make a track in 10 minutes. Doesn't mean you're making a great song in 10 minutes, but what I believe is that if you can sequence something really good in 10 minutes, then that means you're building up your technique to be able to do this. So especially in the hip hop world, that's really like, you know, you might get with an artist and play them some beats and they like them, but they're like, it's not really what I'm feeling, and they'll ask you to make something on the spot, you know, or they'll just come to a session while you're making something on the spot, and they want it fast. As soon as they get an idea, they want to go in and record. So you have to be able to kind of make your beat, sequence it, arrange it, and all that type of stuff really fast. So I think just having the ability to really know your craft and understand how to like make your workflow fast keeps the excitement because you don't spend too long on one thing. And I think, you know, in this day and age, we all have a really short attention span. So sometimes you can get really deep in a song. So I think especially when you get to that fourth or fifth section, depending on how many songs you're working on, like, you know, don't start with the song that you last worked on. Start with something new or just bring in something completely different. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Just always try to keep something that keeps the artist thinking fresh. You know, if you've worked on a lot the last session on one song, like once that artist goes, make sure you finish that. Like make sure you get that to like a nice place before you show it to them again. You know, because what they'll do, they'll come in with new ears and they might say, I don't like this, I don't like that, and you change it. And you can go round and round and round like that. Like, no, let's change this, let's change that. So it's on you in between sessions to do the work, to like fix things and like to try to like work on it some more, because the artist has to feel like it's getting better and better every time, you know, because we can get inside our heads and say, no, I want to change this, no, I want to change that. And a lot of the best artists and some of the best records you hear, they might go through a lot of different drafts of the song, but the thing that they pick sometimes it's usually the rawest performance. Just like we went in there and we did it, and that was the best take. And then we tried 10 takes afterwards, and they sucked. So I think it's just about keeping that energy and excitement up by having new things to deal with, whether it's just a new version of the mix or, oh, I tried this idea. What do you think about, like I said with that song, Schoolgirl, one day I came in and the engineer had like started making this trap beat, and I was like, whoa, here we go. Let's work on this. And it excited me because I become tired of the old beat, and we were just struggling on finishing the song, and I think what you have to do is identify the problems that are holding a song back from being completed and try to attack those problems, whether with the artist or without the artist, and then bring a solution. So when they come to you, you're like, okay, we didn't like how the guitar sound last time. What do you think about this? And you to do the work before they get there so that they have something fresh and new to listen to. Now if you're doing a writing session where you just have beats and they're writing and, they're just coming to write, then, just always have new stuff to show them. Just always just try to keep it fresh because you never know what's really going to connect with the artist and bring them and excite them. Also just have snacks. Having snacks is good because a hungry artist becomes an angry artist. Cool. We got any other questions? I think it's good to, these are the type of things we need to know because it's important. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is what I talk about a lot now. I'm not, as proficient as I used to be on Logic, but let's see what we can do. And I don't use a Hebrew keyboard, and I don't know how to pull up even an instrument on here anymore. Like this is weird. Oh, here we go. Hold on. I'm showing how little I use this program. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just make a template, cause templates always work. So this is one thing I talk about always is like working in 4-bar loops, 8-bar loops, all that type of stuff is really, really good. In hip hop, I'm speaking hip hop, but really in a lot of music, all you really need to make a section different is a minor variation. So changing one thing, either adding something or dropping something out. That really does a lot of the work for you. So let's see. What did I do? Let's just see if we can quickly make a 4-bar loop. Okay, we're gonna put this joint on 90. We got 4 bars here. We got, I don't even know what this is. Some fake drum set. Oh, you have Ableton? Yeah, let me get let me get that. It's not that I can't use Logic, it's just I don't. So I feel like this is what I'll say about DAWs. Logic is like way better, in my opinion, to record music in, like to record audio. I think it has a really you can agree or disagree. I think the audio processing in Logic is way better than Ableton. I think Ableton is just the structure and the way it's set up is really easy to make beats. He's gonna remove this real quick. It's cool. How much time do we have? Oh, good, perfect. So in this next 15 minutes, we're gonna make a song real quick. Because with Ableton, all things are possible. It's funny, that same producer I was talking about, like we used to talk about this a lot because I used to use Logic, and he was like, but with Ableton, sound becomes water. And I was like, yeah, I like that. I want to do that. So I'm going to wait till they have the screen set up. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to start with a 4-bar loop. We're going to make everything in this 4-bar loop, and then we're going to expand that 4-bar loop into a song. Okay? And then that way, you can see kind of like just different techniques I use to, which is what I wanted to do anyway. So we've saved the day. Your question and this computer have saved the day. But yeah, it's just theme and variation. So you can make a whole song from a good 4-bar loop, you know. Anyway, until we get the HDMI set up, I'm gonna just start building the beat. Can somebody shout out a tempo? 90? All right. What? Someone said 92? It's going to be a battle to the death over this one. All right. He's settling. Okay. I, yeah, very diplomatic here. All right. So we got 91. I know y'all can't see it just now, but okay. Oh, don't buy new Macs. Don't buy new Mac. They just, I mean, I know I'm about to buy a new computer, but I'm like, I can't get the new Macs. They don't have CD players. They don't have USB drives. Next thing, I can have a keyboard. They don't have. I'm sorry. I'm the only person who likes CDs still. You know, CDs are awesome. Okay. Well, this is how you got to work together. Wait a minute. Okay, so now we have her computer. Sorry, ma'am. Yours looks nice. It looks really nice. I was excited to touch it, but I'm more used to this. I think. What year is your computer? You know? Yeah, no. Your computer is older. I'm sorry. Yes, it has character. Here, just we don't even need this guy. You can just move him out the way. So now, yeah, the clock. I love looking at it. The clock is at like 10 minutes. Do I need a MIDI keyboard? I don't, but I'll use it actually. I can do it all on the keyboard, but the MIDI controller is better. I can play better things. Thank you. Thank you for this. Perfect. I'm gonna move this so turn this off. Oh yeah, you can just do it there like that. There's a USB on this side. I think the USB is here. Okay, so we settled on 91. Yeah. And everyone can see this now. Maybe is it possible to get the lights slightly lower because maybe they can't. There we go. There we go. Oh, maybe it'll probably read it, but maybe it won't. Yeah, let's see. Let's just you can pull up the preference. Well, if we're gonna get dark like this, I'm gonna have to get real dark. You think it's configured? I would imagine this one configures automatically. It's pretty popular. Yeah, it's probably already configured. It's cool. All right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, let's see. Oh yeah, we don't want that. Command was it Command M or something? I don't need to necessarily MIDI map it. Cool. You gotta go to this live. This one preferences What is it trying to do? Yeah, I think it's configured. Well, there's nothing. We don't have anything up right now, so I don't think it'll. Cause she has the. Oh, what was that? The MPK. Yeah, I think she has the same one. Oh, there we go. This is the mini. Yeah. Oh no, it's cool. Thank you, man. Give it up to the students helping us out. Okay. So, there with live, you can do a lot of things. You can make things in clip mode, which is awesome. But I'm just gonna make this like a normal DAW, so like everybody can kind of get the idea. So we're gonna start with drums because drums is awesome. But also, I talk about the elements of a track. So does anybody think they know like what are the different elements of the song? I like to think of 6 elements. We haven't just shout them out if you think you know. What do we need in a song? What do we need? I heard melody, harmony. We'll call structure arrangement. Bass, yes. Cowbell that goes under drums, and then for a song with the person, lyrics. So there we go. So melody, harmony, bass, some drum type stuff, arrangement, and lyrics. So we're gonna start with our 4-bar loop, and I'm just gonna pull up any random drum set. There we go. Where we go? This thing's still not configured, I don't think. You know what? I'm not gonna worry about this. Oh wait, what am I doing? I don't hear any. We got to get some sound on here, unless we don't have the output set. Do we have sound coming from the thing? Yeah, built-in output. We got any sound? Bop, 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 bop. The output is
Oh,
set.
maybe try to go to the
yeah.
to the projector again.
Yeah. Not the Ableton, just the whole computer.
No, but actually it should output something. Oh, but still, it shouldn't even go through here.
Yeah, right. It shouldn't. Yes, huh?
It's okay.
Is it you guys? There we go. Okay. Now this is on. I see it moving, but I don't hear it.
No, it's the other one, but not that one.
Let me see. If I can control it on here, then it's okay. Let's see. Where's my jet? Yeah, okay, we're good. I normally make beats without a MIDI controller, so excuse me. All right, let's get into it. Will we say 91? Okay, let's see what that sounds like. This there we go. Oh no, your metronome's kind of like spastic. It just comes, it does what it wants to do. Whatever, we'll see. So I didn't make those drums like completely perfect. So whatever, we're gonna quantize. You gotta love quantizing. Let's do 16. Why not? Whatever. Now this should be better. Okay. So we have a little bit of a drum layer. Cool. We got that. Why not just quantize that too? Why not, Except for that triplet. That triplet stays. All right. Nope. That didn't sound right. Sometimes it's good to leave it unquantized. It makes it sloppy. I like it sloppy. Yeah. I like it like that. Anyway, so now we got like a drum idea. Why not? Why not? So we'll add this one, that'll be it. Alright, so we have some drums now, whatever. So what are those elements? Harmony, melody, bass, yeah. So we'll add some chords or something. Oh yeah, here we go. So now I'm just gonna play a random chord. What was that next element? Bass, maybe? Let's get a little bass. Right? So the thing is, we're going to build up this 4 bars, and then we're going to arrange it. So now we got our bass. But that's not the... That's bass octave, yeah. That's all you need. You know, with bass parts, the simpler the better, I think. Alright. Don't need that metronome anymore. Alright, so we got harmony, bass, now make it have a little melody or something. Whatever. We need a little synth sound or something. Mallets. Mallets are always good. Here we go. A little melody. Counts as a melody. That's what I wanted. Boo. All right, so cool. Let's listen to it. We now have melody, harmony, bass, drums. That's cool. So then we're not gonna add any lyrics right now. We're not gonna record. So then the next element is arrangement, right? So we got 4 bars. Now we have 8 bars. Now we have whatever this is, 12. Now we have 16, right? Okay. So let's say we're gonna have a 4-bar intro. We're gonna have a 8-bar verse. No, we're gonna have a 16-bar verse, and then we're gonna have a 8-bar chorus, and then that's it. Okay. So let's just copy everything to our length. So a 4-bar intro, then we have our 16 joint, and then our 8-bar chorus. Stop. Okay. So for our intro, no drums, no bass. Maybe we'll have this little melody. I don't know about that. I don't like you so much. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just, I don't know, take some of the frequencies out. Make it a little nastier. Yeah, it doesn't even sound like a melody. There we go. Maybe we'll take this off somewhere along the line. I don't know where, but we'll take it off somewhere. Yeah, we'll tell you to go off right around here. No, that's LFO. My bad. Device on. Oh, is this Ableton 10? No? It's 9? It's like a weird thing. When I want something and I move, it's not giving me what I want. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's like it keeps going back to parameters I don't want. Whatever. The filter stays on. So this is our intro now. This is our intro, right? Just we can put some reverb, whatever. A little delay, whatever. Who cares? Now, when these drums come in, there's too many drums. So we can't have all those drums come in. So now I'm gonna go to my drum part and say, there's not too many drums. There's not enough drums. I know what you mean. We should have more drums. Okay, let's just see. He says there's not too many drums. Let's just see what happens Our 4-bar intro and our drums come in. We'll see if it feels like too many drums. So it's our intro to the song. This when the artist is like, ooh, 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 and then the drums come in. Hey, and I'm rocking. Oh, ain't stopping. Whoa, and I'm rocking. Ooh, cut some bars for the bass line. Whoa, and the bass up. But see, because I didn't quantize the bass like an idiot, it didn't come in on beat 1. And now I gotta like look at this. It's all off. And I deleted it. Oh. Now it's gone. It's like it's in that random space where it just doesn't come back. That's okay. No bass on the 1, but that's the whole point. That's what bass lines do. Okay. See we just gonna go command you. Now you're on it. Okay, so look, we had our little drums came in. It was awesome. So I need to make my 4 bars interesting, right? How am I gonna set up the next section? A new element's coming in here. Bass. Take the drums out and bass. I still don't hear the bass. Whatever. It's because it's low and not mixed and really subby. Whatever. Imagine that was impressive. You know. This next 4 bars, okay. The same thing is happening here. So I'll change something maybe. I'll cut some bass notes right here. We don't need that. Now maybe the verse is still going on. This is like the last little bit of the verse right here. I'm gonna add another element. See, just a tiny element, just like a little creep. And then when I get to the chorus, it'll be like full on. Everything is big, and then that is kind of gonna be the structure of the whole song. You know, you just have these little elements that come in and out, and then that's really all you need to do. And yeah, of course, you could add other things and like other parts and make it all interesting. But you know, for now, since we have like 2 seconds left in this class, that's what we're gonna do. And synth lead is gonna be you. Ooh, it's not gonna be you. It's not gonna be you. It'll be you. All right, here we go. Oh, it transposed it. That's awesome. So, okay, whatever. Now it's a half step down. We can rock with that. So now this is my chorus. It keeps transposing it. I don't know. You have a weird computer. That's okay. Anyway, because I know we're running out of time, essentially what I would do on this chorus section is I would add more elements to make it the biggest section of the song, because this is where your hook is coming in. This is where it's going to be all the vocals. Everything is great. But to set up that section, I'm taking things out, I'm adding things, and I'm still using the same 4-bar loop, right? So within 4 bars, you can have everything you need for a track. It's just about being creative for where you take things out, where you put things in, utilizing effects to create kind of atmosphere, and, you know, trying to make it dramatic. So I know I'm kind of rushing through this because we have to go, and I wanted to do this in the beginning, but that's kind of the answer to your question. You can take one idea, and it's more of just every 4 bars. As you see, every 4 bars, I'm changing, I'm adding an element, I'm taking an element out, and that makes the arrangement easier. And with these programs, you can easily copy entire sections. So make your first 4 bars, copy it as long as you want, and then start deconstructing it. And then hopefully your song will sound like a song and not a 4-bar loop. Thank you, guys.
So thank you very much, Charles. And there's going to be a show in 8 o'clock? Okay, as מישהו רוצה, you can stay for the show. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Ronen for bringing Charles here. And woo! Next week on Kitat Oman, Michael Cohen from Cohen at Mushon. The week after that, Adi Ulmansky. So it's going to be a hot month. All right. עוד דבר אחד שאני רוצה לעניין אתכם בו, שלא קשור בכלל לעניינים האלה, אבל אני מבקש... פאב פילטר מוציאים אחר את זה, סתם. אבל לא, אני רוצה שתפיצו את העניין הבא ברחבי רימון. גלגלצ עושים במצעד השנתי השנה שיר עם המאזינים, הם מבקשים מהמאזינים לכל אחד לציין את עצמו, שר, מנגן, whatever, מה שאתם עושים קאבר לשיר Genius של סיה ודיפלו, I'm a Genius, שיר נפלא. ואז עושים מכל הדברים האלה, חותכים אותם לתוך מין כזה קוטימן סטייל, של כל האנשים, כל אחד מצלם את עצמו, ואז זה. ובמקרה יש לי קשרים טובים עם הבן אדם שעושה את זה, כי זה אני, אז כן, אז לא, סתם, תראו, הולכים כנראה לשלוח 1,000,000 אנשים, כי זה פנייה פתוחה לכל מאזיני גלגלצ. אני פשוט חושב שמרימון יכולים לצאת דברים מאוד מגניבים, אז אם בא לכם, ככל שתעשו משהו יותר יצירתי, כן, אני לא באמת, אני לא יכול לעשות מזה קליפ של תלמידי רימון בלבד, אבל ככל שתעשו משהו יותר יצירתי ומעניין ומגניב, ופה יש את היכולת לעשות את זה, אז זה ייכנס, וזה אולי במקום יותר משמעותי בפנים, זה הולך לרוץ בפלייליסט, זה הולך לרוץ, כאילו זה יהיה טירוף. אז אני ממליץ לכם, מחר הם מכריזים על זה, ומורידים מין כזה קיט שיש בו פלייבק ואקורדים ועניינים וזה, כשאתם תוכלו לשמוע כשאתם מצלמים את עצמכם. לא צריך להקליט את זה טוב, להפך, ממש לצלם את עצמכם עושים whatever it is you do, ככל שזה יהיה יותר יצירתי, זה יהיה יותר מגניב. אז בבקשה, תפיצו את הבשורה שהדבר הזה קורה, וזה הכל. אם אנחנו כבר, יש עוד בשורה שצריך להפיץ. בשבוע הבא, מגיע לפה ג'ו בנט, שהוא סגן נשיא מברקלי לענייני אקדמיה וכאלה, והוא הולך לעשות פה